All right. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Serious Angler podcast, powered by our friends over at X2 Power Batteries. As always, I'm your host, Bailey Egbert, and joined with me is the captain, Mr. Andy Full.
Are you
What's going on,
sick of
dude?
me yet?
What's that?
I said, are you sick of me yet?
Sick of you?
Yeah,
I only sped all the way home to drop you off to get rid of you.
I figured as much.
Turn your mic up a notch. Don't you
What's
love
that?
that when StreamYard starts that it just changes everything?
Yeah, it's great. No,
Keep going. Keep going a little bit more.
going. How's that?
That's
Good.
much better.
All right. Yeah.
Can you hear them,
You know,
folks? Folks tuning in live.
adjusting everything since we got home from Charlotte, and I was telling Bailey offline here, I was literally running around trying to get everything together. And if you can see behind me here, there's boxes everywhere. That's because we are actually moving out of this house on Friday. So it's a hectic March for me and the full family. It's fun. How are you doing?
Trying to, similar to what you said, getting back, and things have been hectic. And we were planning for Tuesday Night Live tonight, and I didn't think that there was any lick of chance that we'd be getting on the Champ tonight, which the Champ is actually on his show, which if you guys have not listened or watched Let's Talk Fish, that is a freaking great show, and it's the one that literally Thrift is a host on with Matt Erie. Highly recommend. And they're kind of going late here tonight, but he's going to jump in when he can. We're going to be breaking down, his win, obviously $300,000. It's pretty badass. But dude, I'm back home and I am trying to catch up on work stuff and get my life back in order just to completely 180 again and go back down to Tennessee this weekend for the Classic next week. So it's, you talk about getting all the gear, like shoot, we brought all the gear down with us. We recorded a bunch of shows at REDCREST last week. And then it's back home trying to get that gear out of the box and everything and get set up so that we can record this tonight. And obviously we have more shows we're doing this week to prep for the Classic next week. So it's been madness, absolute madness. But regardless, I am excited to sit down, catch up with everybody on here, catch up with you and talk about how our show went for us. It was a great show for the Serious Angler crew. But then also when the Champ's ready, get the Champ on here and talk to Mr. Bryan Thrift about how he won $300,000 from a 5-day fishing tournament. It's
It
different
was a
from all the other
marathon.
formats.
It wasn't a sprint. It was a marathon. Like,
But I mean, even like a Classic's not a sprint. Like
no,
3 days is still a long time.
the 3 days I feel like is easier on the mind and body than 5 because there's an entirely different approach to conserving fish over a 5-day period as opposed to a 3-day period. And what was the practice like for REDCREST, right? Like, did they practice
3, I think.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then on the water Wednesday? Or did they practice Saturday, Sunday, Monday, media Tuesday, Derby Wednesday?
I'm pretty sure it was, yeah, they had 3 days of practice.
Yeah.
But regardless, it was a lot of fishing, especially for the top 10. But yeah, anytime you have 5 days versus 3 days, it's obviously much more intense. You have to go fish new water at some point throughout that week. You're pretty much forced to, especially when these fish were the guys are catching them spawning at first, and then people are doing a whole different lick of patterns. But, like we talked about in the shows last week, Thrift probably has 300 odd something thousand waypoints on his graphs that one of those is probably going to come in handy. And that's exactly what happened. And that's exactly what he won on was a waypoint that he had. He said it was up the river that we saw the last 2 days, him catch at least a solid 13 pounds off of. Didn't catch a big one the last day, but the day prior caught a freaking giant spot off a dock. He just went and get 13 pounds and went swinging on docks for the rest of the day, which proved very valuable for him. And that's how he caught 17-12, the biggest bag of the week, was doing exactly that. I'm really watching my cat try to lock itself in the office. But Andy, talk to people a little bit about your first REDCREST. I actually have Bryan call me right here. I'll tune back in here in a second.
Yeah. Oh, REDCREST was really cool. As everyone knows, I am absolutely terrified of flying. The flight was easy. We got a direct flight from Buffalo to Charlotte and then home from Charlotte to Buffalo. But REDCREST, from a media standpoint, was really, really good. Joe and Charity over at Major League Fishing did a phenomenal job catering to not just us here at Serious Angler, but all the media. They took care of us. They allowed us access. You could tell that they're really trying to make it a top-notch thing. And how many people actually showed up to the expo was absolutely incredible. I don't know the exact attendance number of people who showed up, but there was Friday morning till I want to say like 2 o'clock. It was really busy. So the expo went from 11 to 7 Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And on Friday, it was pretty busy from like 11 to 3, and then it really slowed down. 11 to 2, 11 to 3, and then it really slowed down. Saturday and Sunday, it was packed. And then the final weigh in with the anglers on Sunday was absolutely insanity. There had to have been like 8, maybe I don't know how many people were actually there, but the main room that the REDCREST Expo was in with the stage, I think it was packed almost all the way back to the Bass Pro booth, from what I could see from where I was standing on the media ropes. But they did a phenomenal job. The one thing I could have asked for was more fishing brands to be there from like a lure, rod, and reel standpoint. There was only a couple. It seemed like there was some like miscellaneous stuff there too, like in Renewal by Anderson Window Company, which like who is stopping to buy windows at a fishing tournament
Yeah, it's
expo.
all expos though. You get those non-endemics that are like nobody knows about. That's just local.
But other than that, I think they did a pretty good job. And
Yeah.
what would you say, Bailey?
No, I said yeah. I think they're doing great. But Andy, your Nike's making kind of weird noises. See if you can just connect it, reconnect it.
Interesting.
All good. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I think especially compared to last year, being at the first Red Crest, there was not a lot of people there last year. But compared like this year, it was popping. Like it was a really good event in regards to numbers and what Andy was saying. Like they call it the post game show. It's like their kind of time to get guys that are weighing in, quote unquote weighing in, doing the awards deal. There was probably 1,000 people there. Like it was a very hefty crowd, much better compared to last year. But it was a really great event. They had 3 buildings. The 2 buildings were kind of like on the hotter side. If anybody remembers the Ray Roberts Classic, it was comparable to that, just not as hot. But you were definitely sweating when you went in the other 2 rooms. They had some good brands there, but like the main room was awesome. It was really great layout. They did a lot for the media there. They put us up for the week, which we highly appreciate. That was super cool. Big shout out to Joe and Charity who did a kick-ass job at REDCREST this past week. Um, and speaking of somebody else that did a kick-ass job, we had our guy that won 300 grand, Bryan Thrift, the guy that won it. He is actually on his way home from his show. He's going to hop in here for probably about 20 to 30 minutes here in about 10, 15 minutes. So we're going to go through some of the different things that we have to talk about. Just know that he's coming up here on the show. We're going to get him. He's obviously for anyone that wins a major event like this, their schedule is all over the dang place. We left it up completely to Bryan if you wanted to come on. We didn't even originally plan to get him on here. That's a big shout out to Charity for helping us get him on for tonight. But big shout out to Bryan for making it happen. He's like, let's get after it. Let's still do it. But I'm excited I purposely didn't listen to their Let's Talk Fish episode tonight because I wanted my questions and my intrigue to be more fresh because I'm sure he was going to break down absolutely everything in his show. But I recommend anybody that's tuning into this one, or if you're listening to this show when we drop the MP3, to go back and listen to the Let's Talk Fish episode, which is again with him and Erie, because that's two very close friends that are breaking down their derb, but also him as a host. He's probably gonna go into way more detail than what he'll probably bring out with us tonight. So, highly recommend that. But dude, I think REDCREST was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it being in Birmingham next year.
Yeah, they're what, on Lay Lake next year, right?
Yep, Lay
Birmingham.
Lake, and then 2025 is Gunnersville, but it'll be the expo will be in Huntsville.
which is like an up and coming town I hear in Alabama. So that'll be really exciting to get down there the next 2 years. But I do have a question for you, Bailey. Did you think the big bait, soft and hard, would play as much as it did
I mean,
throughout
it's
the
that
tournament?
time of year, right? And like I said, time of year we're pulling out those bigger baits, especially in the springtime, where like you even catch 2 pounders. Like I think you saw a lot of guys. I won't say no that I didn't expect it. But I kind of just assume, spotted bass fishery. Like you see that with Murray, you see that, with Lanier, you see those glide baits, and you see kind of your bigger shad imitators play for that pure fact of like that's what get those big spots fired up, and that's how you can go, especially in the backs of these creeks for these largemouth. Those are things that play, and it's just kind of that springtime bite, especially with you saw the emergence of the new Berkeley cull shad. Like that bait made a big presence, and the anglers that did really well. And inside of that was the mag draft, the mega bass mag draft. That was another one that those baits just do well this time of year because one, they're just big presentations. They get the fish to show themselves, and two, they just straight up trigger big bites. I mean, the 6-inch mag draft, I'd argue I have so much confidence in regards to just getting a bite. It's almost kind of like if I'm fishing cover or like docks, so how they were doing it, I almost have more confidence in a mag draft getting bit than a wacky rig. Like I think that's just the time of year. It makes sense, especially because a lot of these guys, I think, threw a Nico or a wacky to get their 5 fish, and then immediately went to that or swim bait, that glide bait, to therefore try to get bigger bites because it seemed like everyone was able to catch. Everyone that made the final day was able to catch 12, 13 pounds, but the people that had 14 to 16 were going after. They realized, hey, if I have 11, I can either work hard and try to call up to 12, or I can go throw this bigger bait around and call up to 13, 14.
And to Brad's point down here, do you think people pulled out the big baits were more willing to pull out the big baits because they switched to the 5 fish format as opposed to catching away as many fish as they could? Because the minimum weight was 1 pound 7 ounces. So if they were still in the old format, you probably would have just saw 40 guys every day out fishing offshore catching 1.7 pound spots and just wearing them down.
But remember, one of the guys that was out doing that all day was Jacob Wheeler. Don't think he hit the bank much of any, and
Yeah.
he wasn't catching a lot of fish.
But Jacob Wheeler is also probably one of the best in the world at graphing lakes and figuring out where big fish live. I'm not discrediting anyone else on the tour, but time after time after time, he proves that he can get offshore any time of year and catch big ones. I feel like Jacob Wheeler is almost an exception to the rule.
Yeah, but he was still catching his lick of 1.7. You saw his last day bag. He still had a bunch of 1-pounders in there. I don't. No one was catching a lot of numbers. The only person that was catching a lot of numbers even later in the week. Well, later in the week, no one was. You heard Alton say that on stage, but like beginning of the week, Alton said he was catching 40 fish a day. Like I think it really also depends on how these guys present practice. Because like, I mean, dude, it's a dock lake. Lake Norman is a dock lake. I think the guys that go fish docks, it's like you can go throw the wacky rig, catch the smallest one out of the school under a dock, or a group of fish under a dock, or you could throw that mag draft, catch the bigger one out, and you're still making the same amount of casts. You're still hitting as many docks, but you're triggering bigger bites. So you're making bigger numbers when it comes to a score tracker for an all fish counts. Like I do think though, like you saw it, especially after day 3, no one was catching a lot of fish anymore, especially with that big pressure drop in regards to temperature and everything changing. I just think that offshore stuff, those fish were like, I think they made a heavy push shallow. The majority of those fish, there's a lot that are still offshore, like we saw Wheeler catch, but there was
Avila
like
was catching some fish offshore too early on in the day with the wacky rig, especially I think on Saturday, right?
Saturday, but he was like
He was
50
close.
yards off the bank. He was literally right the ramp. Like I think those were fish that got. I mean, those are fish that were like I think pushed up but got caught. Trying to come back, and we're just stuck in the middle of moving up and just kind of waiting. Hey, Mother Nature, we're trying to do our thing. Can you kind of get your stuff in gear here?
Yeah, it's like that
You know what I mean?
perfect break where they can slide back and feel comfortable.
Yeah, I do think even if it was an all fish counts like that was last year, like with a weight minimum, I still think guys would be throwing the same baits Maybe not the big glide bait stuff like Ed Evers was doing, where he was catching good ones on that, but not many. But I still think like a mag draft is still a numbers bait for sure.
Yeah.
The 6-inch swim bait still catches 1.5 pounders to 6 pounders. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm
I
pretty
think it would have been
positive
interesting.
that new coal shad is what caught Evers his 6-pounder on day one.
It 100% was. I'm like 100% sure because I think he pulled it out and held it up and said, "Here's a new Berkeley call shad," like just falling out of his face.
It never fails when you tell anglers to not talk about a bait. They're going to talk about a bait.
Yeah, let's talk about another infamous time. We'll backtrack to last year's classic with the slobber knocker. Yeah.
Hey, John Cox, don't say slobber knocker on live. 2 hours in, not even 2 hours into live.
I think it was like 4 minutes into the tournament. He's like, got this big one on a brand new Berkeley slobber knocker.
Here's what I want to talk about too. Okay, I don't mean to spend too much time on this.
It's a great question.
For everyone tuning in, we got a bunch of people joining in. Appreciate you guys doing so. We do have Bryan coming in. He went a little late on his show, but he just called me earlier. He's going to be here in about 10 minutes or so. He's going to pop in as soon as he gets home. We're going to have him on for 20, 30 minutes. So stick around. He is coming. So before we get him on here, there's a couple things. And we'll talk after Bryan. We have Bryan on as well because we have some more things to go through. A lot happening with the show in the next couple weeks. But Joey Walter says, do you think the cull shad would be better than the mag draft? So for people that either didn't see, they don't know what we're talking about, Berkeley came out with a new bait. Well, they weren't originally planning to. It's supposed to be released a couple months from now. A new bait that mimics the mag draft. And a lot of people go and saying, hey, it's a knockoff. It's a knockoff. It's a knockoff. It is a similar bait. It is a paddle tail swim bait. Yes. But there are big differences. And in my mind, I mean, okay, this is from somebody that has talked directly to the people that designed the bait, the marketing people, the team itself. But I have not thrown the bait yet. I'm going off of what the pros have said, especially this past week using it. But I've seen it. Andy and I have looked at it. We had it in our hands this past week, and this is our observations.
A reel of it on the Lure Lab podcast page, so you can go look at it there.
This is like our observations from that. Okay, we're not going off of what we haven't used it yet, but the mag draft has a couple downfalls. I love a mag draft. We've talked about it on the show. It's great for catching numbers all the way to big ones. It does not last a lot of fish though. It's hard to skip it under docks certain times without the treble coming out. It skips like a freaking dream. It is hard to skip without the treble hook coming unharnessed because of that magnet system, where after 2 or 3 fish, that magnet usually falls out. The things get all janky because I believe it's a glue that attaches that magnet to the bait itself. Whereas the cull shad has a clip. It's a clip that actually inserts into the bait, which is very, very difficult to come out. And that essentially what it does is that shank of the treble hook snaps into the clip. So it basically takes a decent amount of force, aka a fish's mouth, to unclamp that. Whereas then you can skip it under every single dock or under underhanging trees, and that thing's not going to come off. Secondly, you have the honeycomb pattern tail, creates a bubble trail. But beyond that, it creates a much, much more actionable tail at that slower speed. But also with that if you look at it, when you slow roll mag draft, the mag draft is like this, great tail action. The cull shad is like this. Like it is much, much wider. It goes much farther up the body for when that tail moves.
It's more
and
defined.
And then there are 2 designated nail weight sections in the bait that you can literally put nail weights in, weight it. What this does allows you to do is you can burn the daylights out of the swim bait. It does not blow out. Where the mag draft, you have 1 speed. Otherwise, it rolls on its side and it does freaky things that you don't want it to do. Mm-hmm. Not saying it won't get bit doing that, but it's not the most favorable. It doesn't have as much roll. Whereas the cull shad, you can slow roll it or you can burn it. And I think that's where it makes it better, is that you can actually have more speeds than just one deal with the mag draft. Did I miss anything there, Andy?
Did you, and I apologize if I missed this, did you talk about the screw lock hook keeper as opposed to the magnet?
The screw lock hook keeper. No.
Yeah, so like when the treble hook goes into the body with the magnet on the mag draft, the cull shad actually has a screw lock hook keeper, like a wire harness that comes down that your hook will clip into to
Yeah,
keep it taut to the body instead of just falling off all the time.
that was the hook clip. Yeah.
Hook clip, got it. I called the hook keeper, so my bad.
You're good. Same deal. Same deal. But yeah, I think that makes a huge difference compared to the mag draft. Now, look, I'm probably still going to throw the mag draft, but I'm also going to throw the Kel Shad because of that, especially if I'm trying to put it under baits or under overhanging trees and such. That's going to be the perfect bait to do so because it's not. I get frustrated a lot throwing the mag draft because that hook comes out. You miss fish sometimes when that hook's not where it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a whole bunch of questions coming in through here now. Joey, I can either confirm or deny if there's going to be a freestyle version because I don't know. That we're literally trying to. For those who don't know, I'm on the PR team for Pure Fishing, so literally this is all coming at me first glance of like we weren't supposed to release this right now. So stay tuned. We'll keep you guys updated as it goes through and things progress. But we are not here to talk about a bait. Obviously, bait was like a big craze throughout the tournament. But we're here to talk about REDCREST, and Mr. Bryan Thrift will be joining us here shortly. But coming up, there's a couple cool things to call out tonight. One is on Thursday. There's some big news coming from our friends over at X2 Power, which we will release formally that information on Friday. Mr. Sean Boudiek's is going to come join us to help us talk about that this week. Because Friday's episode is going to be Tyler Rivette. Tyler Rivette's going to come join us. We meant to get him on earlier. Of course, like another, with winners, it gets hectic. So we nailed down a time. We're going to have Tyler Rivette on Friday. And then next Tuesday, the plan is to have Jonathan Kelly's episode go live. So we'll have Jonathan Kelly for that day. Actually, that might be Thursdays. Well, either way, we'll get it figured out and we'll confirm that which day we're having Jonathan Kelly on. But next week's going to be hectic because Deacon and I are going down to the Classic, which is going to be a heck of a lot of fun being on the Tennessee River. But if you looked at the forecast, it might be interesting. It's going to be cold. I'm not too fond of the when I pulled up the old Santee weather forecast, Andy, for the next coming weeks.
What's it looking like down in Knoxville?
Well,
I haven't even looked. I know what it's going to be here, but I don't know what it's going to be there. So
Knoxville is going to be cold. I mean, I haven't. Obviously it's next week, so a lot of things can change. But leading up into at least early this weekend and into next week, it's going to be cold. There might be a little bit of warming trend. Obviously that's TBD, but for me, anyways, in a couple weeks, I have a tournament down in Santee Cooper, and all I saw was when I pulled up weather for Santee was freeze warning, and I was like, oh, good.
I got the Charlotte freeze warning today, and I was laughing. I was like, goodness that we are out of there, because down there I feel like it's just an entirely different type of cold. Like Sunday when we walked out of the hotel and it was like 36 degrees and drizzly and raining, and I was like, man, this is bone chilling. And then we got home and I was like, oh, it's not bad. Like, it's just kind of funny how it works. But yeah, Knoxville, Tennessee, you're leaving what, Saturday, I'm assuming, or Sunday?
I have yet to determine that, but this weekend, yeah.
So if you get there Sunday, the high is 43 degrees. But there is a good warming trend. I'm going to call it out now. I think Smallmouth is going to be the play for that tournament. Somebody who wins is going to catch at least 10 to 13 smallmouth, I think.
So I'm going to disagree off of insider trading, being that I was on the phone last week with Gussie, and he says he doesn't think it's going to play. That's my only reasoning. I have no other,
call to action. Because it was warm, but now it's cold, and I don't think it got all that warm in Tennessee to make those fish really get up and start doing their thing. So it'll be.
They're shallow. I don't know if you've seen. If you look up Fort Loudon or anything on Instagram, location-wise, people are catching them shallow, big time.
Interesting. I want to see some videos on it, because sometimes people will box fish and then go up shallow to make it look like they're catching them shallow.
I think that the times, if you see where Alabama's at right now and you see where the weather has been for Tennessee and what's happening, if there's a trend, I think regardless, because it's a river system, they're going to get caught shallow.
It's going to be interesting.
And I'm pretty positive since Gussie won down there doing that area has been absolutely pummeled.
Yeah. I remember the first time they went there, there was a section. You gotta remember, I think it was way up Tellico. There is a section that plays that Ike and Ellie found that had really big smallmouth on it. And it was like a shell bed that went from like 2 to 10 foot. He was catching them cranking, not in his little culvert that he found, but way upriver. And he tried to make it work 3 days. I think he caught like 2 or 3 of them a day that were big fish. But isn't there like a minimum size, like 18-inch or 19-inch
Yes,
for?
18,
Yeah. So
18 inches,
that
which
also has to play with smallmouth, which can be a huge gamble.
can be. And I think one thing to remember too, and I hate to keep talking classic here because all of our next coming shows, including next Monday's fantasy fishing show, is going to be classic. But remember, they've Bass has only ever been to Tennessee River twice beforehand, all within the same time of year. But this is the latest they've been there. This is the latest, and with the last two times, I think with this one, we saw Ott when it shallow, had a
Yeah.
big bag of green ones. It's gonna be interesting, regardless of how that shakes out. But we should be getting back on track here in regards to the REDCREST talk because Mr. Bryan Thrift will be joining us here in a second. We're gonna start breaking down some things with Bryan on his win when he gets here. So if you guys have questions you want us to ask Bryan, we're gonna make some time for that before we get him off the show here. We're only gonna have him for about 20, 30 minutes, but we will get another show scheduled with him down the road here to get a full hour with him and really start discussing some things. But if you guys have questions, start putting them down in the comments here for when he does pull in and he's able to hop on the stream that we can fire some of those off. One thing we'll bring up with Bryan too is there's some other new stuff coming out with Blackfish gear. Some really exciting things that I am looking forward to rocking at the Classic. I'm forward to those who are making the Classic come see those deals. But Bryan was wearing them at REDCREST, and I was severely jealous because they would have been handy.
We talk about it because he said what he was wearing.
Yeah, fire
the
it.
Booties. I'm excited for the booties. He's like, I got my Avon jacket on, my bibs, and my booties. And I was like, ooh, Blackfish booties. Sign me up for that cold weather time. Like, I have a pair of non-Blackfish ones, and I wear them like everywhere when I'm not wearing sneakers and it's wet out, and they are awesome.
I don't know if I can't get with the term booties for boots.
Booties, rain boots.
Just
booties.
sounds weird to me.
I'm gonna make you say booties all the time.
No.
We're gonna convert you. No, I just call them boots normally. I just thought it was funny that Mr. Thrift himself called them booties on his Instagram page, and I was like, it just kind of stuck.
Hey, you call them what you want, my friend. I will let you own that. But yeah, new Blackfish boots, waterproof boots. Like if people have they're like extra toughs. That's all I freaking wear when I go fishing majority of the time if I'm not flip flops. So the fact that Blackfish has some coming that are going to be pretty dang sweet, have their own spin on it, I'm very excited for that. But we'll let the other stuff announce here soon. We'll either let Bryan bring it up or we will show you guys at the Classic next week. Yeah. But it's gonna be a lot of fun. But one thing I'm intrigued to talk about, and I'm curious your opinion, was Andy Montgomery had a tough. Was it that Saturday? Yeah, Saturday that he got knocked out.
Yeah,
it's intriguing to see his bite die because he was kind of doing something a little bit different than everybody else was. He kind of started earlier on that mag draft swim bait, more wake bait than anything kind of deal.
Yeah,
why do you think his deal kind of died?
So leading into the tournament, they had very stable weather. I feel like no big weather changes, dips, a lot of rain. So they had very stable conditions. And I think that led to a ton of fish flooding the bank, spawning, going post spawn, up there feeding. So I think that's why that bite played. Because if you watch day one in the knockout rounds, Thrift started off the day throwing a wake bait. So he was on that bite as well. But because he adjusted and changed it through the course of the 5-day tournament, and I think Andy Montgomery kind of just stayed with the plan because that's what he practiced and that's what he had. I know he's relatively local, so I think that's what he got caught up doing and stuck with it and was hoping that I might not get 40 bites a day. I might not get 10 bites a day, but if I can get 5, I know they'll be the right ones. And it seemed like when he swung the stick, it was a really good fish. It just, that pattern dissipated as the water temp was dropping and the fish were changing up the way they were behaving around the dock structure.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm intrigued to ask Bryan about when he gets on here soon is we literally heard on live them talking about water temp, and he's like, it's 75 degrees. What?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody was expecting that.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with where they launched down there at Blythe as well, because that's where one of the 2 main warm water discharges flows into.
But remember, he was up by the river.
Yeah, and I'm not sure where. I don't know.
You get 30 minutes to run.
Yeah, I don't know where the whole geography is. I just know there's 2 warm water discharges. Are they both on the south end?
Both on the south end. Yep.
Yeah, that the only other reason to explain that is if you had strong south winds blowing it straight up the lake and pushing the warmer water up there, which
it was warm.
happen.
I mean, when we showed up to
it was 80 degrees when we got off the plane, it was hot. So
yeah, that's probably why it was 75 on day one, because the morning was still warm for the most part.
Yeah.
But I find it intriguing well, I'll say one thing. This is one thing I really like about Major League Fishing's live for the sake of the anglers is there's no map that says, hey, here's exactly where this dude is offshore. Like that gives it away to people that are just kind of like head hunting for spots. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I do like that about Major League Fishing is that like it kind of gives you less like clues of where they're at. I mean, obviously when you see them pan Zach Burge, that's 50 yards away from the ramp that they launched out of.
That's really funny. Like Wednesday morning, we went to the launch, and I was like, "Oh, look, somebody went out and turned right." I thought it was Michael Neal, but when we got the live pulled up, it was actually Zach Burge. Which I was like, "Oh," I was like, "It would be really funny if somebody goes over to that riprap and catches them like first thing, and all of a sudden with the updated score tracker, right? Like, oh gosh, that guy's got 5 already. I haven't even finished running, or like they just finished running and he's on 5 and 10 casts. Like that would really mess with me mentally if I was fishing that.
Well, I mean, that's for bass maybe, but like they still have 30 minutes from when they launch to when they start. They don't start right away.
Right. But if somebody ran all the way to the north end of Norman and might have just gotten off pad and was just making casts, and all of a sudden somebody has 5 and then another person has 5 who's relatively close, that would throw me for a loop.
Well, we will dive into that because we got the champ joining in here. He's in the queue. So let's not. I know he's got a lot going on, so we're not going to waste any of his time here. Let's bring him right on in, Mr. Bryan Thrift.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Good evening.
What's going on, dude?
Oh, doing good.
Are you ready to pass out yet?
I'm getting close. The bags in under my eyes are getting bigger by the minute, it seems like.
Sure. Oh, geez.
We made sure to let everybody know that's been sitting on the show here to if they didn't tune in to the Let's Talk Fish show, to go back. And I personally wanted to watch so bad, but I wanted to keep my questions fresh. So I have it on the docket to go check out afterwards. But
perfect.
Yeah.
I appreciate y'all holding off and letting me come on. I'm sorry I'm late. I apologize to all the viewers, but thank you for staying on.
No apologies needed at all. We appreciate you just showing up.
Yeah, we know you're going right. I mean, I know you're taking the day off tomorrow, but you're going right back into a derb. They didn't give you boys any sleep. They're like, hey, nope, you're not off Tennessee.
Zero turnaround, and it's not really I'm taking the day off. I'm taking the day to organize tackle and get everything straight where I'm ready, because I'm so OCD. If I show up to practice with my tackle the way it is right now, I'll sit out on the lake for 3 hours redoing everything until I have it the way I want it. So I might as well do it comfortably in my shop and then start ready to rock.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things you're known for is probably the cleanest, organized boat decks in all of professional fishing. But kind of throw it back to how that even started, like from an organization standpoint. Like, how did you become to get like that when it came to bass fishing?
Um, I don't know. I think something's messing up with my feed. Can y'all hear me okay?
It's starting to get a little bit choppy.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
yeah.
is choppy. I don't know if that's me.
See
or
if you
what.
can. Let me see if this works. Let's see. All right, is this any better?
It's still kind of choppy. And
See if
They
you
good?
can jump out of the lobby and then enter back in through the same link.
all right, how do I do that? Leave. All right.
Yeah, leave studio and hop back in.
I always mute myself and then go to talk because I'm muted, and I'm like, crap, I'm muted.
Oh man, we'll get that figured out with Bryan and get him back on here quick. But dude, literally, seeing his organization with how OCD I am,
Yeah.
like it is the most satisfying thing. Like it is. Whew.
You must hate fishing with me because, like, by the time I'm like halfway through a day, I am a hot mess on the water. Just everything is everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna We'll see if we can get him in here. You got us now?
Oh yeah, that's a lot better.
All right,
Perfect.
cool. So
StreamYard has a mind
yeah.
of its own.
What we were trying to dive into was how you're known for the most organized boat deck, like out of all of professional bass fishing. And what we do with everyone that's new to the show, we always like to throw it back of like how you got into fishing in the first place.
Right.
But like, I'm kind of more curious. Have you always been OCD your entire life, or did that start somewhere with fishing, especially?
I don't think I've always been OCD. I think it kind of started with fishing. I mean, well, I don't know. I can remember back when I was a kid, like I would always like get my toys. I remember having the GI Joe action figures. I'm pretty old. I'm 43, so that was the thing back in the late 80s. And like I would organize them and like set them up on the shelf, and like I wouldn't touch them because they were perfect. They were the way I wanted them. So I guess it did start at a young age. Never been diagnosed. I guess it's self-diagnosed.
Don't worry, if not the industry, definitely diagnosed it for you.
Yes, that is very true. Very true.
Well, dude, seriously appreciate you taking time to join us here. So we want to allow you to get some sleep before another long tournament week starts. So we're gonna get right into it.
Okay.
In regards to, I got a cool opportunity to chat with you before the tournament even started. With Humminbird and Minn Kota, and you seemed very calm, like not too worried about all the eyes on you going into the week, but. What was running through your head, during practice when you're seeing how the lake was going to shape up for tournament?
I won't. I don't really know. Practice went like okay, but not great. I caught one big one in practice, which kind of clued me into a pattern I may be able to run to catch a kicker. But the most important thing I got out of practice was finding an area or two where there was a group of fish where I thought I could comfortably catch 11 to 12 pounds fairly quickly. And that would calm me down enough to be able to run a shallow big fish pattern and look for one or two bites the rest of the day.
Right. So then, with that, going into day one, it was, obviously pretty chilly for a lot of people. It was a big change because the day prior, it was like, Andy and I were talking earlier, it was like 75 degrees, 80 degrees and sunny.
Right.
Big change, which was like, we heard you talk on live, but you said like the water temps were in the 70s. So like where you're starting there.
No, they were in the low 60s, like 62, 63 was where the temps were the final day of practice. And I think the first day of the event, the water temps didn't fall that much. Like it was, I think 57 where I started in the morning. So it wasn't really that affected until about the second or third day of the event.
Oh, okay. That's really where, like, when we looked at when the score's zero, that was almost like for people that qualified, it was almost like a brand new tournament. It seemed like when you looked at the conditions anyway.
Oh, it really was. It was definitely a brand new event once we started the third day and weight zeroed. I mean, you had to go out there and like approach it from a brand new event.
Right. So like heading to your starting spot on day one, especially, did you have any sort of strategy or like, I'm going to try to get a limit off of this and conserve it, like trying to prepare for a 5-day marathon championship event?
Yeah, I was definitely thinking that. So I I actually ended up having 2 good areas that held a quality group of fish. And one of them ended up lasting me for 3 days, which was perfect. And I started there all 3 days of the first days, and I was able to catch a good 11 to 12 pound limit in the first period. And that freed me up to go practice and go hunt for 1 or 2 big bites the rest of the day. And um, but ultimately, what won the event for me, or really what I considered won the event for me, was another place I had that when I found it, I was thinking it was similar to my starting spot the first 3 days. It was a 10 or 11 pound place. I didn't really put a lot of pressure on it in practice. I caught 2 or 3 fish off of it. And it seems like in practice, I thought they were 2-pounders or maybe a 2 1/4. Like I could catch 10 or 11 pounds there, but it would, if I was struggling, I could go up there and get a decent limit filler fish. And ultimately, I went up there on day 4 and it ended up being 2.5 to 3-pounders, which really surprised me. And that's ultimately what won the event for me, was having that little backup spot that turned out to be a lot better than I originally thought.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I thought I heard you on live while we're all tuned in. You're like, I was really hoping to save this spot for day 3, but you ultimately day 5, but you ultimately had to go there with like 2.5, 3 hours left on day 4. Were you afraid that you burned that area to the ground at the end of day 4 going into day 5?
Oh, I was definitely afraid of that, because on day 4, I caught a lot of fish off of it. I mean, I ran up there and I caught probably 10 or 15 scorables off of it in the period of 45 minutes to an hour. And, I finally, I caught them till they quit biting. Like, I was like, I was listening to Score Tracker. I'm up to 13 pounds, and I'm like 1.5 pounds back on Alton right at that point in time. And, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I've got to catch more because he's still got the lead. I need this to be as tight as I can possibly get it going into the final day, so I've still got a chance. So I put a lot of pressure on that place on day 4. But, fortunately, with about 30 minutes to go, I started running pockets again with that swim bait. The first pocket I pull up in, I catch a 4-pound, 10-ounce spot, which, I mean, looking back, I think that's actually my personal best spot.
Oh, really?
I think
Awesome.
it was. Yeah.
Was that the one that almost looked like a largemouth? I think you were saying it. Like you thought it was like a
Right. Yeah, I think it was. I don't know if spots and largemouth mix, if it was a hybrid or not. Like it kind of looked like it had the mouth of a largemouth kind of, but it had the markings and the teeth patch and everything else on it said spotted bass.
Yeah, that's what Andy and I, because we were at the table by the stage when you specifically caught that fish. We're watching it,
Yeah.
and you boat flip it, and all we see is mouth come up. We're like, "Oh, that's a largemouth. That's got to be 5."
And then turned it on its side, and I was like, "Oh, that looks like a spot."
Yeah, I know. That's the way I was.
It was wild. The thing looks like a giant, but it had to be cool knowing though that like something in the back of your head, like, hey, that's what I need to do to make those big calls.
Right.
Clicked.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's true. Like I want to try to pick one winning moment throughout the week. Like, was it the 3.6 and the 4.9 I caught on back-to-back docks? Was it the spot up the lake? Was it that 4.10 spot I caught at the end of day 4? But that's what was so fun about having REDCREST be a 5-day event, is you can't pick one decision that wins the event. Like throughout the course of 5 days, you've got to make 20 decisions, and 18 of them have to be good.
Yeah. I mean, 5 days, like, it's, to my knowledge, there really hasn't been a championship like that.
No, I don't think so either. And I love it. Like, and I'm not just saying that because I won. Like, even if I hadn't won, I'm a huge fan of that 5-day championship, because, that's a true championship. Like, it's a 5-day marathon, and at the end of the week, nobody can argue that, the person that won had the best performance or not.
Right.
Yeah. I was going to say too, like, if on day 1 going into like the final stretch of the tournament, someone catches a big bag, right, and then they slack off the final 2 days, there's still that ability for somebody to catch up. Or if they catch their giant bag on day one before the elimination and weights reset. Now things are back to zero. So the dynamic of the
Right.
whole thing is really interesting.
And it is, and especially with the time of year that REDCREST is takes place, being in early March time frame, a 5-day event, you're going to have a weather system. If you're anywhere in the south, southeast, mid south, you're going to have changes, and you're going to have to change tactics, and you're going to see guys make these game winning decisions on the water in real time that you can't see in a 3 or 4 day event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's a time of year where Mother Nature says, "Oh, you planned a tournament. Here's a cold front. Enjoy."
Yeah, let's fish in 2 80-degree days, and then now let's fish in some snow for a little bit, and then tomorrow we may have some wind.
Yeah.
Keep
Good
you on
Lord.
your toes.
It was crazy. It was quite literally a roller coaster looking at the week's like weather forecast. Like
It was, and that's what I was talking to everybody. I'm like, it's like I wore a different blackfish suit every day of the tournament. Like I started out with the storm skins and ended up in the event, and it's that event rain suit. That thing is awesome. Like I can't speak highly enough about that thing, especially that final day and that 40-degree all day wet rain. It was amazing.
Yeah, and so we're blackfish people over here too, and that's one thing that caught our eye was, they gave us the old hint that hey, something else new might be coming, and they I saw, I think it was either their story or Major League Fishing story, but you got to wear the new blackfish boots.
I did. They're very, very nice. Kept my feet nice and dry. I was all decked out, and I looked like a poster child for blackfish on Sunday. I had the event rain suit on. I had the new blackfish boots, the gloves, but I was warm and I was comfortable.
Those gloves are sweet. I love those things.
They are. I loved them, and I actually carried 2 pairs with me because I knew it was going to rain, and I'm like, I can wear this first pair for like the first period while I'm running around, and then second period I got a dry pair ready to rock.
Did you ever have to change your gloves though? Because they are like almost fully waterproof.
Do what?
Did you have to change your gloves at all? Like you said, you brought 2 pairs out, but
Yes.
those gloves are so you did have to change them. I was to say I love those.
Yeah, they were waterproof on the inside, but they soak up a little water and get a little heavy, but it wasn't bad. Like I didn't have to, it wasn't a requirement, but after I won the event and they made it official, I dug my dry gloves up out of the box and wore them on the way in.
Your little treat coming back in.
Yeah, a little treat. I saved a little something for the ride back.
Heck yeah. Well, they we were telling people, we were kind of teasing it. They got some new stuff coming, especially in the reel they posted with a couple new things that they didn't put it out there and like say it verbatim, but they kind of people paid attention to the different gear that you were wearing. There's a bunch of new stuff coming. That's really, I think it's officially dropping next week.
Yes, I think so. Yep, at the Classic, I believe. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff coming out. I'm looking forward to that. I'm gonna probably work at least 2 days at the Classic. So
Heck yeah.
Everybody that's watching, come by, say hey to me. We'll hang out and talk some fishing and check out some blackfish gear.
Heck yeah, for sure. Getting back to the fishing part really fast. The one thing I was really curious about on the last day, that specific spot you were talking about that you were afraid that you were catching too many fish on the second on day 4. I remember, I think you said it on live, was that I'm surprised there's still like this many fish here or something along the lines of that, because you caught, I think that's where you sat majority of the day. Did you think that there was more fish coming to you that were like moving towards the back to get ready to do their thing? Like
it's possible there was. I'm not real sure. Like the 5th day, so the second day I fished that spot, I went as soon as I pulled up on it, I immediately started catching them, and I caught them pretty good for about 20 or 25 minutes, and I caught some good ones. I ended up catching almost my entire bag off of that spot at 13 pounds, 10 ounces. I caught one 213 spot on a swim bait under a dock. With the other 4 I caught up there, I think I ended up with a 2.5, a 2.6, and 2 3-pounders, like a 3 even and a 3.2. But I didn't get near as many bites. I think I only caught maybe 7 or 8 bass off of it that 5th day. I was just fortunate that 4 of them were the right ones.
Yeah, that consistent, 2.5 that you were talking about earlier.
Right. And that's the class of fish that helps you win multiple day events on Lake Norman. Like a 1-day event, those 2.5 pounders don't do you much good, but a multiple day event on Lake Norman, 2.5 pounders are golden, because that's what you need for limit fillers. And then you can find 1 or 2 kicker bites every day. You're good to go.
Heck yeah. We have a question here asking what the swim bait was.
The swim bait was a 5.8-inch paddle tail swim bait.
Sweet. And that was what you'd rock going up shallow to the docks, right?
Yes, when I would go up shallow on the docks, that's what I was throwing, and I was throwing it on my signature series frog rod from Fitzgerald Fishing. It's a 7.2 medium heavy action, and for all the guys that followed the live, I don't know if you've seen, like, especially that clip of me catching the 2 big largemouth on that 3rd day back to back. Like, you could see how well that swim bait would skip, and the accuracy you could have with that 7.2 medium heavy frog rod. It's amazing. And using that Fitzgerald Fishing VLD 10 reel with a 7.2 gear ratio, and it was a setup geared for catching big fish. I've got a big rod, 20-pound P-line fluorocarbon, and I'm putting that bait in places that a big one's going to live, and I've got to get him out of there. I mean, that 4.9 had me wrapped around every piling on that dock at one time or another throughout the course of trying to get him in the boat. And that P-line held up good, was still able to boat flip him and get him in the boat.
Yeah, I remember you saying that, like, when you were reeling him in, that was what, like, he's got me wrapped up on every piling, every which way. But one thing too, like, it was funny, like, when you say that, skipping it like a dream, everyone that was watching by the stage was like, when you'd make a skip and it'd go like all the way back, like the Hercules, Disney scene of like skipping across the ocean. Basically, people were like, "Oh yeah, I could watch that all day." Like, people were just satisfied.
Yeah, it was fun. Like, I had a really good time this event, and it was like, I'm bad to fall into a trap at Norman of panicking and fishing too fast, and that was the ultimate goal of me in practice, wanting to find a place where I could catch a decent limit, just to calm my nerves down and get my mind to quit thinking, hey, you caught one over here back in 2007, and you caught one over here 10 years ago, big one. Like, you need to go run all this stuff right now. Don't sit here and fish slow. Go run it fast. And then you end up in a snowball effect, and before you know it, you fished 100 places, but you haven't fished them thoroughly, and you haven't got any bites to show for it. And I tend to fall into that trap at Norman a lot, and I'm fortunate that I was able to find a couple of places that could provide that decent limit, just to calm my nerves and say, all right, go slow, get to work, do your thing, and the bites are going to come.
Yeah, and that was going to be one of my other questions, is like, when you were talking about how crucial 360 was for you in this event, and obviously working in tandem with Mega Live, but you mentioned that they weren't setting up whereas Mega Live would be more effective than the 360, where 360 would kind of showing you where you need to make your more precise casts, but that you could almost see them somewhat glued to the bottom with Mega Live. Can you talk a bit more about how you're using them in tandem, but then also like how they're actually positioning on Mega Live?
Yes, of course. So I run the Humminbird Mega 360 and Humminbird Mega Live on the Apex 13 units. And one thing that works for me, and one thing I've spent a lot of time this winter on a small lake here at my house, is honing my craft with the Humminbird Mega Live. And what I've learned from that time on the water is I don't like to chase individual fish on live and throw it one bass. I would rather use that Mega Live to find active areas in the area I'm fishing. So that's actually how I found the spot I started on the first 3 days of the event. It's as soon as I pulled in the pocket, I go in on the trolling motor and I start scanning around with the Humminbird Mega Live, and I'm noticing there's huge bait balls everywhere. There's some down on the bottom, there's some swimming around here and there, and I'm seeing some bass swim around, or fish that I assume's bass. And on my 360, you can see everything around the boat at all times. So I can see the way that creek channel runs. It may run 50 feet out from me and make a bend to the left and have two stumps sitting on the edge of that bend. I can see that in real time on the 360, and you just can't see that whole picture with a forward facing sonar with Mega Live. So Mega Live is a great tool and I love it, and it gets all the hype because it's the new technology. But when you compare that Humminbird Mega Live with the benefits of the Mega 360, that is the ultimate tool in electronics to me for the way I like to fish, being a more of a structure fisherman and having a group of fish, because there were fish roaming all in that pocket. And if I'd chased individual fish with Mega Live, I would have been driving around like a madman throwing at fish everywhere, because there were literally bass everywhere in that particular pocket. So I could stay in that creek channel with that 360, and I could point Mega Live around and see where those shad balls were, see where the active fish were, and then look down at that 360 and be like, oh, there's a stump 20 feet over this way sitting right on the side of this creek channel. And I'd fire that underspin over there and catch 3 or 4 off of it. I'd troll up 20 or 30 feet, and there might be a rock sitting on the edge of the creek channel on the other side. I'd fire over there, catch 3 or 4, and just it was the beautiful scenario being able to watch both of those tools and utilize both of them together, because the Mega 360 to me is worth its weight in gold. I cannot do without it. And I'm getting that way with the Mega Live. I'm learning it. I spent a lot of time with it. I'm not the type of angler that likes to chase an individual bass right now at this point in how I like to bass fish. But that Mega Live is something, because I've also noticed with the Mega Live that it will show you stuff that's very small that you can't see sometimes on a 360. So if you've got very thin pieces of brush or something like that, that you normally you wouldn't really see, like it's not very thick, it doesn't stick up far off the bottom, the Mega Live will point that out to you, whereas the 360 will miss it. But at the same time, the 360 will show you everything that's around the boat, and you don't miss a lot of stuff that the Mega Live misses as well that's very close to the bottom.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. And go ahead. Sorry, continue that.
Oh no, that's fine. I was gonna say, just add if that makes sense. I hope I explained it well.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. I think anyone that has used the two techs understands completely what you're saying, especially from 360, where you can see some depth changes, obviously on 360, but like small, very subtle depth changes you can see on live that could be crucial, especially like when you're talking about like Florida, in places like that, where I can definitely see the two exactly what you're saying. And I think from a fan standpoint, I think people love the fact that you look down at 360, you make a cast, but then you wouldn't stare at the whole time. You would look away, and you get bit a lot of times. Like when you look away and you're kind of looking around at what's your surroundings. I think people like the guy that wasn't staring at their graph for a change. I think people thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah, I enjoy it too, and that's the thing. My head is constantly on the swivel when I'm fishing, and I'm either looking for a schooling fish, because there's no telling how many times in my career I've been somewhere fishing and one single fish bust, and you throw over there and catch it, just like a bonus fish, like a gift, like here I am, catch me. And I've just trained myself to constantly be just looking around. I look left, look right, and just to see something, because you can always see something that gives you a telltale clue, even if it's a single shad swimming across on top of the water. Like there may not be a fish busting on it, but he's probably trying to get away from something that's trying to eat him. So you may want to throw over there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Andy, you got anything left here for Bryan before we let him go?
No, I'd say we can let him go here. I don't want to take up too much of his time. Let him get some sleep and get ready for his next derby. So I just want to say congrats, and it's well deserved and awesome to see you win it on your home lake.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. And it's been a trip. That's about all I can say. Like I still blown away that the plan I had worked as flawlessly as it did. That is something that's very rare in this sport in this day and age, because everyone is so good and so proficient. I'm still amazed at the weights the guys caught every day. Knowing Lake Norman, excuse me, and knowing how it is and how it does not handle pressure very well. To see the guys like Alton and Edwin, consistently catch those 13 to 16, 7 out and caught 17 one day, catch those big bags of fish. I mean, they really didn't have a bad day. Nobody had a bad day. And that was amazing. And I can't wait to go back and watch live just and see how everybody caught them. I love the sport of bass fishing. I love constantly learning about it. And it's just for everything to have worked out like it is amazing.
Heck yeah. Well, dude, we're gonna let you go here. I do have one last question for you, and it's not fishing related. And then we'll let you go to bed.
All right.
We ask it to everybody that is new to the show before we wrap up, and that is, if you could sit down with 3 different individuals, have a nice beer, have a steak, and pick their brain. They don't have to be fishing industry. They could be alive now or 1,000 years ago. Doesn't matter. But which 3 individuals are you going to invite?
Oh, man, you're going to have to make me think about that one. I mean, the first one, obviously, is going to be my dad. My dad passed away in 2010, and he always traveled with me to every event. So definitely that's number 1. And number 2 is probably going to be, I mean, you gotta say, Jesus, I want to be a part of that supper. So you got to have him in there, drink a glass of wine with the man. And my third choice is probably, I don't know, probably that's gonna be a hard one, really.
Do you have like a childhood hero or something like that?
Nah, not really. I mean, I really don't. I want to say somebody that's been very influential in the world and changed the course of history, like maybe somebody like Albert Einstein or somebody like Charles Darwin, something like that. Like somebody I could learn from. I would want to try to get inside their head and just see their thought processes.
So, yeah, somebody can learn from. Always learning.
Yes.
Well, heck yeah. But Bryan, seriously, again, thank you so much for joining here. Congrats again on the win. And obviously 300 grand is always nice and adds a little bit of incentive to not take all practice days and take a whole day to rig because your process is working. So
yeah, it worked great last week, and I'm hoping it's going to continue. I'm looking forward to getting out there to Douglas and Cherokee and seeing what we can do. Hopefully we can have another good event there, but either way, I'm going to do it with a smile on my face.
I bet you will. All right, Bryan, we appreciate it, man, and we'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thank you, guys.
Take care. That was awesome.
Yes.
For folks that were tuning in, hope you guys enjoyed that show. We had a little bit, obviously, crackling on his end. I think it was his phone. You could tell when I would talk a little bit. I had end up having to like mute and off mute, like when we would talk, because I think it was his speaker was like reverberating. Sometimes cases do that, but for everyone that's tuning in, hopefully that was still good for you guys and you enjoyed that great information there from Mr. Bryan Thrift. 300 grand, dude. I couldn't imagine winning 300 grand.
Yeah, life-changing, although he's done it before. Here's a question we should have asked. When he won the Forest Wood Cup, was it 500 grand or did he win 300?
I think that was back when it was 3. Because I think on its way out, it went down to 300 grand. I could be wrong. Somebody in the comments probably knows.
For the longest time, it was 5, and then like the last 3 or 4 years, I think it was 3, and I can't remember. Oh yeah, he won the last Forest Wood Cup, didn't he, on Washington River, I think.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
I believe it was Washita. That was before the acquisition, which I still wish the Forest Wood Cup was a thing, to be honest with you. But great episode. Great getting Bryan on here. Looking forward to seeing how he does in the coverage and all that with Norman, or not Norman, good grief. Head's still there. Head's still in Charlotte, but at Cherokee and Douglas. They're at Douglas, I believe, the first until the knockout round, or I believe maybe it's the knockout round and then championship rounds at Cherokee. I don't know how the dual events work.
Yeah,
in regards to the lake.
The last dual event that I can remember in recent history, besides Sharon Harris and Jordan, when MLF would go there in the BPT was Norfolk and Bull Shoals in Arkansas. It was an elite series event, and they went one day on, if I remember. They did like one day and then two and then one for like the championship or something like that. It was completely wild, but that event was really fun to watch.
Qualifying round is Douglas, so knockout and championship will be Cherokee. That's okay. It's gonna be a fun one to watch, especially from like a Cherokee early spring, not early spring, but really primetime springtime for them. That'll be pretty interesting, and it's gonna be cool to have. I know there's been like a rift and guys certain each way with Classic and then excuse me, and REDCREST Expo of like guys not being able to make each, but it was cool to see the elite guys at the REDCREST Expo, and then hearing about guys like Thrift saying he's going to be at the Classic. That's going to be cool to see because like last year's Classic was kind of like there was a lot of big names like Kevin Van Dam and such that you could see at the Classic, which is a lot of people go to see those big names at the Classic Expo. They go meet them because that's what's cool about our sport is like there isn't an NBA Expo with the finals that you can go see all the players that aren't playing in the finals.
Right.
Like there's nothing like that. So that's what's super cool about it. It was a really great event. Appreciate everybody that came and said hello to Andy and I at REDCREST. Deacon and I will be at the Classic. So if you guys are going to be there, obviously let us know. We'll have some hats with us too. So if you do see us, I think we'll figure out a number, but if you're one of the first ones, we'll be giving out some free Serious Angler and Business from the Bass Boat hats. But we have Mr. Paul Roberts in the comments here. Good to see old Paul, one of our buddies from the area. You want to explain, Andy, what went on over there?
Yeah. Paul left the expo and was on his way home. So if his wife is listening, he's probably going to be getting some dirt here. But he texts both of us and he's like, "Where are you guys? I want a picture." So he comes back and he finds us. And as we're taking a picture, I feel a hand literally slide into my pocket. And I have this extremely goofy picture of my face going to be circling around because of Paul. And I think he already posted one of them. And I just like started like laughing like hysterically. I was like, oh God, like this is so funny. Hey y'all, look at this idiot like with the first bite of a Ned rig of the season or something like that. I'm like, oh God.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff.
Yeah, it was good. No, it was great to see Paul. Last time I saw him was 1 year ago in Greenville. So yeah, it was really good to see him.
Wasn't too far from Charlotte.
No.
Your room just went black for a second there.
Oh, like 10 minutes ago?
No, like just now. That was really weird.
Interesting. Yeah, the wind is actually really blowing. Oh, I just did it again. The wind is really blowing right now outside, and when it gets really windy, I tend to have like power surges sometimes. So, or this light bulb is about to blow. So we'll see.
You're ready for the new house. That's what you're saying.
Yes. Can't wait. Friday can't come soon enough.
You know what I can't wait for? Santee freaking Cooper.
Yeah, I'm jealous. Have fun.
So I went there. This will be a new video. I have obviously filming Chasing Hardware videos heading down there. I'm going to film actually a little bit of the travel Chasing Hardware of the Classic going to Santee. So if people see me, I might be sneaking a Be the Fish video if you're around. But I have Florida video day 2 of my Florida tournament going up tomorrow. And then next week's video is actually going to be the 2 hours that I spent on Santee when I was driving home from Florida. Caught 25 pounds in 2 hours. A heck of a lot of fun. I am looking forward to getting back to that lake. I know it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows again like it was for the 2 hours I got to go fun fish, but I'm looking forward to figuring that lake out, being that it's a cypress heavy fishery. I did not fare well on the cypress heavy fishery that I fished in November and sucked at the biggest kayak championship. But I'm looking for a little bit of revenge and figuring out how those fisheries operate. And what worked for me in 2 hours was avoiding cypress trees. So we're going to try to go figure that out.
I hope it stays the same for you with the massive cold fronts. I mean, who knows?
I'm kind of hoping it's just cold front and it pushes these fish back and then they start making a heavy crash. If there is a warming trend, especially for our tournament, we'll see. It could shape up to be an absolute slugfest. We're gonna find out. But it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to Classic next week. We have a cool group of shows coming up in the next couple weeks with Tyler Rivette on Friday, Jonathan Kelly next week, as well as having the shows we're going to have at the Classic. We're probably going to do one show a day for the Classic. We might try to do 4 for the week in regards to a day before the Classic type of deal. Like on that Thursday episode, we'll probably post it on Thursday. Do a Classic, morning day 1, morning day 2, morning day 3, and then we'll have a recap episode. Either way, it's gonna be fun because we'll have it at the X2 booth before the expo. We might even do one during the expo. We haven't quite figured that out yet, but once we do, we'll relay that information to you guys. If you're gonna be there, holler at us. I'm just looking forward to a slam-packed couple weeks of just nonstop action with new stuff coming from X2, new stuff coming from Blackfish, and actually new stuff's coming from Hobie Eyewear as well that we'll be talking about next week. But it's going to be a lot of fun, and we do have for select folks that we work with, we do have discount codes. Those are always in the description, but if you guys want to check out any of our show partners, those are always down in the show notes for you guys, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or you're on MP3. But Andy, tonight was a lot of fun. Mr. Bryan Thrift. But I think we should call it here because I am ready to do what Brian's about to do and sleep.
Yeah, it's well needed. I woke up this morning at like 6:30 and I was like, I need about another 2.5 hours of sleep. Ditto, Paul. Like, it's good stuff.
Paul commented, Blackfish, best rain gear I've ever worn. I got Paul hooked up with a new Blackfish rain suit, like bibs and jacket, and I don't think he's looked back. So to all of our people that haven't tried Blackfish yet, if you want legitimate, actual waterproof rain gear, I've had a few different brands. They are not actually waterproof. I'm talking about piss pouring downpour, like rain that is hitting so hard it's coming back and it's going back to the sky hard. Blackfish still stays dry. So check it out. We got Mr. Tim Price in the chat here. Andy, you had the pleasure.
Oh, yes. It was great meeting Tim. Good people.
Mr. Humminbird Minn Kota. But Timmy will be there next week. If you're going to be at the Classic, go find Mr. Tim Price at the Humminbird Minn Kota booth. You will thoroughly enjoy it, especially if you come from this. It'll be actually really funny. But
I'm looking for Tim Price.
Yes.
Serious Angler told us to go there.
Act really mad, too.
Yeah.
Like he's in trouble. But folks, as always, we appreciate you guys. Great show tonight with Mr. Bryan Thrift. We'll see you guys on Friday with Tyler Rivette.